Okay, so today we'll add a backend to a React application that we built previously. And here's the repository, and make sure to download this code or clone it. Now I'm going to click this file for the wireframe to refresh our mind about what the app is doing. It's basically a box full of text that's pretty much like a message board or a chat room. And then at the bottom we have like a input type text where you can type anything, click send, and it will add to this list. Now the list of these messages are initially fetched from a backend, but it wasn't the backend that we built. It was just for somewhere else. But today we're going to learn how to actually build that backend. So we'll leverage React, obviously, for the front end that's already written in that repository. Then we'll use Node.js, that is JavaScript on the server side, so that we can build a backend API that serves JSON. Now we use the Express library that makes it easier for us to work with Node.js and HTTP servers. Here's the website if you're interested. Like I said before, we need Node.js installed on your machine, a text editor of your choice like Visual Studio Code, and you're gonna need to open a terminal. For example, Linux, just click the terminal, look for terminal. Mac the same way, look for terminal or click the terminal icon. And then on Windows, you can use Command Prompt or PowerShell. So let's get started here. Let me share my terminal. But before that, just look at Visual Studio Code first. Let's refresh our minds. So we have a project with package.json. So it's npm project. You can see we're using these React scripts to load the React app and all. Now I'm going to add some dependencies here for the backend. So usually maybe in the real world we'd have separate repositories, one for the backend server, one for the front end server. For the purposes of keeping this class pretty convenient, everything in the same place. So I'll just add the server to the same project. Okay, so let's go to the terminal and install Express. So make sure to cd or change the directory to the project directory. You can see if you ls or dir, all the files are there. So we're going to do npm space install space express, enter. npm is the node package manager. It allows us to install third-party dependencies. That is code that's written by somebody else and that they make it available as open source for us to consume and use in our own project. So we don't have to write everything from scratch. It might take some time to install Express. Okay, we have it installed. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code to verify that our package.json file indeed added Express under the dependencies property here. And you can see it's version 4.19.2. Now you can also further verify that we installed Express by looking at the load modules directory, and you can see there should be a Express directory there. Just scroll down, there's so many dependencies. There we go, here, this one. So basically, when we use Express, we're taking code from this directory. In any case, let's go here and make a new file. I'll call server.js. Actually, let me make a new folder as well. So we put everything for the server in one place. So I'll move server.js to server, and I'll rename server maybe to just index.js. Now let's write the code to just jumpstart a server, backend server. We're just gonna require express like this. Put that in a variable. We'll just call it express, same name as the module. Now we could take that express and call it as a function to create what's called an app. If you want to add semicolons, if you like, it's optional. Depends on your JavaScript style. Now I can put that in a variable that we call typically app or app. And finally, we can say call the function from this app object that's called listen. And then you just have to say the port you want to listen to. For example, 3000. I'm going to save that. Somebody asked, hey, is it too much to describe the hotkeys as you use them? Which hotkey? Okay. Now let's try this out. I can actually open a terminal within Visual Studio Code. But if you want to do it in a separate terminal that you have open, that's fine as well. So I'm going to press Control backtick, usually, or to open the terminal here. If you don't see that, you can just click View and Terminal if you're using Visual Studio Code. If you're not, just make sure to go in your terminal here and type the commands there. Set, okay? But for convenience, I'll keep it in Visual Studio Code so we can see better. Anyway, let's cd the server directory, and then I'm going to say node space index.js. So it executes this program index.js. Now, you might notice nothing is happening, but it's actually running the server. So if you want to kill the server, you press Control C. That's to send the interrupt signal. And you can see the prompt is back here again. Okay, so Control C to interrupt. So if we go to the browser to verify that's working, I can open a new tab and say localhost colon 3000. 3000 is the port. That's the argument we pass to the listen function. You should see cannot get slash. That means it's working. That's just Express telling us, hey, we don't have this endpoint or route defined. So it errors out that way. Okay, great. Going back to Visual Studio Code. Let's add some feedback so we know the server is actually working. So the second argument to this listen function, I will pass a callback function. Let's add a function here. So the definition of a function, and then we're going to say, oh, let me change my spaces here to 2 indentation. So when I press tab, I add 2 spaces. I like 2 spaces. If you don't like that, you choose whatever you want. So I'm going to say console.log. So console is an object we can use the log function to print something to the terminal. Terminal is also called the console. So let's say server is running at http ://localhost 3000. If I say that, save the file. If you want to save the file, if you don't know how, you can click File Save, or you can do Control S if you're using Visual Studio Code. Anyway, going back to the terminal, Control C to quit, and then I have to run the same thing again. I usually press the up arrow in my keyboard to go to the previously typed command, and I press Enter. Now, why did I kill the server and start it again? Because I changed the code. Every time you make a change to the code, you have to kill the server with Control C, and then restart it, typing the same command again. Now we can see there's a message, server is running at localhost 3000. So that's better because now we know that, oh, something is happening. And it even highlights this URL. And if you hold Control in your keyboard and click, it will follow the link. That means it will open the browser conveniently for you.